I'm Chelsea Choppy. I work at Hivebrite. I'm a principal customer success manager. I've been here for about 2.5 years. And today I have the pleasure of joining the virtual stage with Debbie Bird, community manager at Association for Project Management, and Petra Heitkamp, the community manager at TBPPM Learning Network. So tuberculosis public-private mix. Excuse me, sorry for that. And thank you both of you for joining us today. One quick precision before we start today for the audience. So please be aware that you can ask questions throughout the webinar today during the Q&A box. So you've got two things at the bottom here, Q&A box and the chat. So Q&A box for the questions and anything else via the chat. If you want to share more about yourself, introduce yourself, your community, goals, challenges, let us know via the chat. So now that we've got the intros out of the way, we can get the discussion started. So to kick things off today, I'm actually going to start with Petra. Could you please tell us a little bit about your community and its mission at TBPPM?
Yes. Hi. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. And thank you so much, Chelsea, for the introduction. You said it right. The TBPPM Learning Network is looking at the health systems, so at public and private mixed systems. And it's a dynamic community online. We have over 2,700 members that are dedicated to exchange knowledge amongst each other. So it's peer-to-peer exchange. And since we work with countries where the tuberculosis burden is really high, we also have a south-to-south learning that we really look at. And that means exchanges between countries that we put on our platform. And we use the Hivebrite platform as our main knowledge hub. We work with over 110 countries, roughly 110 countries, and most of them have a large tuberculosis burden. We also have several countries from the north that are part of those 110 countries. And we are based out of McGill University in Canada. So thank you for having us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for that lovely, I guess, resume of everything that you're doing. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that through the webinar. And Debbie, how about yourself at APN?
Right, so welcome to the webinar and hello from me. So our community is a safe private community for members of APM, the Association for Project Management. So we are the only chartered body for project management. And our community hosts our mentoring program. We have all of our volunteers on there and all of our interest network groups and so much more. So it's very much a space for our members to come and join and engage with each other.
Thank you very much. And this question is for both of you as well. So when you approach the initial design and development of your online community platform, how does that start? How do you look at that and say, hey, we need a community. What are we going to set up here? What do we want to do with this? And I guess I had Petra start the last time, so I'll have Debbie start this.
So the design of the community was established 4 years ago. I was taken on to build it, and we basically looked at our membership structure and what our members needed in terms of how they would like to collaborate and talk. Project managers love talking about project management. So it was very much about building a space that allowed them to really focus on that topic. So the structure and the strategy was very much let's focus on what the members need at what different levels of their career and where they were. So some people might be starting out in project management, but going through to emerging professionals, and also people that are changing career, and people that are very experienced and very knowledgeable on their projects. So the structure of it and the strategy was very much about providing a space for them to collaborate and discuss all things project.
All right, thank you. And Petra, what does that look like for TBPPM?
So we were launched in 2019, so right before the pandemic, and I'll let you know later why that's important. We are part of a large global structure. We're really part of, within the Global Health Network, and we work with WHO and the Global Stop Tuberculosis Partnership. And as part of those groups, there is a group that is looking at public-private mix. They were meeting once a year in person and felt that there was interest in meeting more often. So that's the reason why the Learning Network was started. And honestly, they were looking initially at just a group of 200 members. So we tapped into with surveys to hear like roughly what are people interested in? Which kind of topics should we be discussing? And we had smaller discussion groups by the end of 2019. And then the pandemic hit. And that meant that we had a platform already available that was suddenly of interest to the large tuberculosis community, way beyond the issue of public-private mix. And so we went from 200 members to 1,500 within several months. And our platform obviously went a little bit wider of interest. So it was not just the health systems issues that were being discussed, but people were interested in the impact of the pandemic, and we became more of a wider platform. So right now we have a large membership and tailored to various topics that are relevant to tuberculosis and global health in general. And our core still remains with the public-private mix issues that comes back as a through line, but I'll explain later as well how we use different themes and different sectors to bring people together in various groups.
Okay. Wow. So from 200 to around 1,500, that's a massive jump. What did you do to sort of build trust and to foster that engagement among those members? Because that's a hugely different number from 200 to 1,500.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And honestly, it was a massive scale up in a very short number of time and a completely different business framework than we had in mind originally. So from literally small group discussions that were open from 20 people, we suddenly had webinars with 500 people. So we needed to scale in many ways in terms of our structures and in terms of our mechanisms that we're working on and in terms of trust that you're asking for. So what brings people together in our community is that they all have this joint vision of ending TB. And this common goal of engaging care providers, and in our case, the private sector as well, to get this job of ending TB done. And I think that's really important. Since we're a voluntary network, people spend their time and they join out of their passion. We don't pay them. It's all, and their passion is in ending this goal. And so we tap into that level of their interest, the latest trends, the passion and the barriers that they're facing in ending tuberculosis. And that's around that part is where we look at trust. And I said this jokingly at the beginning of our practice run, but we actively, because we're an online practice, we actively reach out to members and try and be as kind of welcoming. So I put my party lights on, as you see behind me, to make people feel welcome and feel that the barriers of this online interaction is a little bit gone, as if we are chatting in a cafe. And I think that's part of trying to tackle the issue of barriers online and building trust among members, is to be as personable as possible and bring people together over email and in groups. So yeah, that's maybe a little bit of an answer to a much more complicated question, but thank you, Chelsea.
Thanks, Petra. Yes, I love the party lights. I love the party metrics. Necklace, not metrics. Definitely feeling at ease having a chat with you. And it does kind of feel like we're in a cafe. Debbie, over to you. I know you were saying in the last question, so everyone in this APM community is coming around project management. So how do you build trust in a community that's about project management?
Yeah, it can be way before they actually join the community. I think our organisation, because we do provide the sort of the qualification for project managers in in various forms. So the trust is built very much as an organisation, and then once they become a member, they have lots of different options. So when we launched, we had obviously 0 members. We've now got just over 4 years on, we've got 7,000 plus members that are active and activated on the community, which is running around 15% of our membership, which is really good and growing. So the trust element is definitely organisational, and then when they come on the community, we reinforce that with, this is a safe space. It's a very non-noisy space, whereas compared to other social media platforms, you're competing with lots of other topics that aren't necessarily purely project management, whereas our community is about project management, and we embrace and enjoy that topic. And I think that's the thing, is it's so diverse, it's so varied, that having a space where you can talk about that diverse types of projects, from the small project that you might just do in your business or even at home, up to the multi-billion-pound projects that are also global. So there's a lot of space on our community for people to express themselves and what they want and what's relevant to them. Because hopefully somebody else on that community will go, oh yes, that's something that I want to get engaged with. So it's not topic related in the sense of only projects on one particular thing. It's very, very wide.
Okay.
And obviously people come there from a career development point of view as well, because you know they want to advance. So there's a lot of knowledge sharing. We have a very big volunteer community on our platform, and they share and give back to the profession as well. So it's a nice space for that. Haven't got time.
Thanks, Debbie. And Petra, as far as the TB-PPM community goes, obviously everyone is coming there around tuberculosis. What does that breakdown look like? How do you kind of foster the engagement there?
Yeah, so well, a very logical one is that we have within our member groups people that are from a similar country, from the same country. So we have country chapters, as we call them, and those country chapters, we actively moderate discussions, events that are country based. We bring people together around topics that are relevant to the country, and in a few countries, we really seen that this has taken up. To lead into, in some countries, we actively provide that the administration of those groups is done by in-country people to engage our members that are most active. So it gives them also a special position. And so that is one category. The other category is along sectors where we work with private providers, we work with country managers, we work with donors, we work with implementers. So our focus is on really the implementation of the tuberculosis programs. And so implementers is a large community, but those other sectors sometimes get their attention too. We have a pharmacy working group, which is really looking at pharmacists only. So those groups we bring together and we call them sector groups. And then a third kind of slice through that matrix is that we have theme groups. And these could be things like the latest tools within TB, whether it's new diagnostics, new drugs, or vaccines that are currently in the pipeline. And we bring those groups together amongst different themes that are relevant to different groups, whether it's social themes, management business themes, or as I say, TB specific health related themes. And those groups then give an opportunity for people to interact around the same issues.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So what I'm hearing from actually both of you, even though the communities are completely different, we've got one around project management, another one completely around TB. What I'm hearing here is I've got to have something for the different segments that are coming here. So 1,500 people, 7,000 people. What does that breakdown look like to foster engagement within those different groups within the community? And Debbie, you started talking about that a little bit earlier when you were talking about the different levels of career experience. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so obviously people do come to us at different levels of knowledge. Some people will come at sort of student level. They may be doing a module in their dissertation and they need some survey support on project management, where you've got other people that are coming to us because they are career professionals and they want to go all the way through all the qualifications and become a chartered project professional and all of that. So you do get it at different levels, and we support that on the community as well as with our APM learning modules that we have. We have a learning platform as well. The other area that is vast for us is the volunteers. We have an interest network group for, I think it's 16 topics that can go anything from governance to project controls to risk, everything that's a sort of a key topic. So they can come in and talk about that. And we also host our mentoring program, which I will probably go into a little bit more detail later. But we've got the mentoring program. So there's lots of things for them to come on and do that are I always look at our community as well. We've got a global community where we have lots of interest, and then we have our groups that are sort of focused on what they want to talk about.
Absolutely. So I think you mentioned before, I don't remember if it was in this conversation or one that we've had previously, you've got the majority of your members that are UK based, correct? And you do have some that are global?
Yeah, we are predominantly UK. We do have a global audience, that seems to be growing, but it is predominantly UK.
Okay. That's slightly different from Petra, because I remember when we spoke before, it was quite the opposite here. So I don't know if you want to go into that and give a couple of examples about the different country groups that you were using.
Yeah, I already referred to it, but we have over 650 members from India, and my weekday starts with conversations with India early in the morning when it's the end of their Monday, and I often end in Nigeria, in where we have a really active country community, and that is really where our most of our activities are, around the globe. And the beautiful thing of an online platform is that you can provide equitable access to everyone, and I mean, just to build on to what Debbie has said related to her volunteer networks and the mentoring that she's doing. In our case, we have a knowledge network. We have a knowledge loop of communication where we really bring in information from those different countries. And I know that there is a slide on this, so at some point it will be popped up. And so for us, to bringing the knowledge in from those various countries is really important, because that's really where the expertise is. Even though there's a lot of research from universities around the world that also provide expertise, but for us, really, it's the practical expertise that people are working with. That's where we want the sharing of knowledge. And in terms of how do we engage people around that, is that we actively bring people together around webinars, around discussion forums. We try to do them monthly, and in that we give different members roles to speak on their topic if they have a presentation, or just bring them in a discussion group so that they can have around some speaking points. Sometimes we give them the opportunity to be a moderator, or to comment, or to write up their story. Even if it's not a full-fledged academic article, it's still really important to have their stories with pictures. And so we try to find the mechanisms to engage our members: a photo contest, poster campaigns. We have a wall of fame where we try and show our most active members. So those are ways to engage the individual members across the groups. And what we've noticed, that even though they are from various different countries, they all have similar passion for the subject area, and they find each other. And the beautiful thing with the platform is that they recognize troubles that they have in their daily work, whether it's working with the district government, or they see that the same might happen on the other side of the ocean, with colleagues that are doing similar work. And so that connection, that's also how we bring people together. That the platform offers a belonging to many of our members. And I think that's what the engagement is, and why people keep on coming back.
Absolutely, definitely. So it kind of connects the idea of trust, the sense of belonging, empowering, and kind of building on the activity that's happening to continue to empower and encourage those interactions and participations happening. So whether that be online discussions and activities that you're kind of spearheading, or things that are happening amongst themselves, I think those are excellent ways to kind of bring people together. And I know that you both do that very well. Debbie, I'm going to come over to you for a second, because I want to hear a little bit more about what the onboarding looks like. So when you're new on a community, you come in, you're not really sure, you know what you're there for. I'm there for project management, but what can I do when I get here? How do you handle that empowerment portion?
Well, I have a number of ways for members to onboard. So I have a landing sort of page when they first log in. That's bespoke to our community, which basically sort of highlights up, this is what's in our community, and there links across to various groups, or the forum, or the mentoring program, things like that. Have a welcome group that is, all the members get put into it automatically when they activate, and they are encouraged to post and say hello, who they are, why they're here. Not everybody does it, but a number do, and I'm always it's great when they do. I do step in and I do welcome them, but I try to hold back a little bit sometimes, because they're not coming to talk to me. They're coming to talk to peer-to-peer support. So although it's important to make them feel welcome and acknowledged, for me it's very much trying to show the way, and trying to encourage other members to say hello. I often relate this to you go to a networking event, you go to a conference, and you'll meet somebody, and you'll have a conversation, but you wouldn't say, hello, my name is John, and then someone look at you and walk away. You wouldn't do that. So I don't know why people do that in communities. You know, somebody's made the effort. It takes a lot of effort to post on a community, especially when you're new and you've just arrived. So even if it's just a hello to somebody and welcome and get that conversation started, it's just politeness, really, and supportive. And that sort of culture is very much what I believe, and that's what I'm trying to build. And I think that's a culture you can take into any community, not necessarily just a professional one, but it is, these communities aren't built by the community manager, and I don't mean that it's really important that the people that are visiting your community are really engaged with it, and then it will flourish, it will just grow, and it will just self-propagate.
I love that you just said that you would never walk up to someone at a networking event in person and say, hi, I'm Chelsea, and then boom, off to the next thing. And I think similarly to that, you would never just outright ask a favor either, right? So it's funny, these are things that we know in person. They should be inherent to the interactions that we have on a community as well, right? So I think, is there anything that you talk about with users in this welcome group or in the welcome email or anything like that to give them that example? Because I think that's a really powerful example that kind of speaks to everybody.
Well, it's not actually. Good point. Maybe I will change my welcome email. But it's, I mean, I do have a sort of a top 10 infographic, if you like, where I encourage people to look at that and to say, come on to the community, have a look around. Look at your profile, maybe look at some other people's profiles they put on theirs or somebody that you could relate to. And the platform's got a really powerful search tool, and the member directory is great for being able to find people with a similar interest. What other people are doing, invest in your profile, put your picture up, put down what you're doing, and share a little bit, because I think if you share, other people will share, and you building that culture. That's a very good point. I think I might actually change my welcome email.
Well, you'll let me know how that goes.
Really.
Petra, given that your community is focused around something that's so close to the self, right? This, whether it's someone who is suffering from the disease, her or himself, or someone who's kind of working in a more practical field around it, do you feel that people are forthcoming when they get to the community, or is there something you have to do to bring that out of them?
Oh no, I think what Debbie has just been talking about completely resonates with me. It's still an online platform, and there is a screen that you're talking to. You're not talking to a person. So it's very similar to what Debbie was saying. We have kind of a welcoming email that outlines exactly how you can get involved, but it's rare that we get active interaction with that. It really is kind of the personal follow-up that then comes from my account or one of my colleagues' account to the person directly, nudging them or inviting them on a platform where they speak and they can see each other. It's after that the connections are being made. And I think it's really it's tough, especially as you're saying, because our topic is around building partnerships, right? The public and the private, and people are very entrenched in those positions and don't necessarily want to collaborate in a larger way. So what you just described, Debbie, is kind of the bottom line of my day-to-day work. And I often say to people, when you start dating with someone, you're not giving them a contract on what kind of services you expect or what kind of money you're going to pay to your private provider. You're first going to get to know each other. You need to kind of build that trust, that relationship, and that's very similar to the workings on a platform as well. So where I'm talking about the larger picture of building public-private partnerships within tuberculosis and within the health system, that's similar to the kind of making people meet from different countries across the world to actually advance their own interest and learn from each other. So yeah, I think it completely resonates. And the way we try kind of a few additional things where we try to engage people is we do a poll during every webinar, we do a survey on an annual basis, and that's how we get feedback from individuals that is hard to track because it's anonymous, but it gives us really good insight on what people individually are looking for. So those are just a few tricks that the mechanism allows us to do.
That's great. And I'm glad that you brought that up because we will also be doing a survey after this webinar. And I hope that everyone will take just a couple of minutes to fill that out to help us as well. But all joking aside, so what you've both just said here is kind of, yes, the community manager's role is to get in there and to encourage, but not to handhold. So how do you kind of toe that line? How do you know when to get involved or poke?
Ooh, who wants to go? Who wants to go, Petra?
Do you want me to go first?
You go. You go.
So I actually think that's a crucial question, Chelsea, and it doesn't get enough attention. I think the role of the community manager is absolutely key in bringing people out and bringing people together. And yet at the same time, you're behind the scenes and you need to be behind the scenes. So you offer the platform, you make it as comfortable as possible for everyone. You're trying for people to meet to each other. So that whole atmosphere of trust or place to engage with each other, and yet it's not up to you to make the conversation. It's up to them to make the conversation. And I think I often say, you know, that we're sort of the under-recognized idea inspiration behind the scenes, and the moment the ideas actually get to fruition and people take complete ownership and run away with it and don't give any credit, it's a thankless job because you have succeeded in what you want, and the best piece of success is when you're not necessary. But that's not necessarily something that's a big way of celebrating. Maybe that's why I put party lights on for myself. Just but yeah, no, that's kind of maybe an answer. It's not a full, I don't have a scientific answer here for you, but yeah. Debbie, what would you say?
You know, I think we're on a very, very similar plane here. Yeah, it is a thankless job, and I know, and I've often seen this. You know, our community managers, introvert or extrovert, and I think we're both, because I think there's an element of us that, you know, it takes a lot of energy to encourage people to post. And it can be quite draining on you personally, because why won't you post? I'm giving you the guidance, I'm giving you the support. What else can I do? And I think you're right. You know, we have to become ideas person as well. And it's like, well, what if I post this? Will that trigger that? And it's a very trial and error sometimes. I don't think there's an exact science to it. I think it's everything. To me, everything comes back to relationships, and people warm to me and the culture that I'm building in the community, or whoever the community manager is. I think, you know, that will help with the engagement. But I totally agree with you, Petra. You know, you really want them to engage, and when you see it, I mean, it's a weird thing, but it brings real joy.
Yeah.
And you know, when I see a post and it's got all these likes and it's got loads of comments on it, and I'm thinking, yes, I've done it. You know, it's almost like nurturing these people to engage, and you know that they will be getting value from it. And I think it's also understanding that when you get on a community, there are some people that they'll never post because that's not why they're there. They might want to come and read and absorb everything, and they are so welcome, as well as the people that want to, you know, do all the posting and ask lots of questions, because you need that mix. You need that mix of people that will bring everybody together. You know, and yes, I'm the facilitator. I'm providing this space, but yeah, sometimes it would be nice to be acknowledged.
I think that's a great point to remember. You know, those of us that have worked in the community space in any capacity for a long time, you've got the famous engagement pyramid, right? So you're never going to bring all of the learners at the bottom all the way up to the top to be these top contributors, right? And that's not the point, and that's not the goal. It's to have a space for everybody to interact in a way that makes them feel comfortable. And there's nothing saying just because we can't look at it and we can't measure it that it's not valuable. There's something else you said that I wanted to bring back, that a lot of it is trial and error. And I think that's a great point, especially for those in the audience, because God, we do this and it works, but it doesn't work how we expected. Based on the trial and error that you've done these past several years, what would you say is the way that you're providing value to your members to get them returning, right? We talked a little bit about the onboarding and what we do when they come on immediately, but what does that look like going forward, getting them to come back again and again?
Oh, I mean, that's a challenge. I mean, I think for me, it's if you join a community, build it into your working week, make it a habit, make it, especially, we all make a habit of going to other social media platforms because they're about us. But if you're going to a community that is actually, you're sharing your expertise and your knowledge, make it a habit, go there regularly, and trying to encourage people to do that. It's not easy, but that's what we suggest, is that you regularly visit and have your notifications on. Why join a community and not be visible, not have a presence on there, and not be receiving things that are going on? No, there might not always be something that's of interest to you. Then adjust your notifications to do that. But just try and keep in touch with it is probably what I would recommend, just to try and get people to come back. Because if it's of something of interest, then they will return.
Okay. Petra, what about based on your trial and error tips and tricks?
I think the weekly digest is really important to keep people informed, and we see that people click. We do on top of that quarterly newsletters where we kind of highlight what have been the biggest achievements in the last few months and what's coming up in terms of events. And that really leads me to the events. I think the events where people get the chance to be on stage themselves, or where they get to profile their story and what they do, that really is an engagement tool that makes them then come back for a while because they see the value of the platform for themselves. And so from our point of view, our webinar and our discussion forums are really a winning tool for engagement, I would say. And then the platform is a supportive function, and we try to bring the platform in as much as possible by saying, hey, this discussion forum we just had is great, continue it on our forum. And the questions then appear on the forum, and people then engage, and then they read in the live feed. It's really hard to bring them away from whatever social platforms they normally have onto our platform. And in some cases, and in some countries, we've said, well, why don't we use the existing platform? So there's WhatsApp groups, or there's other groups that they have already in country level that we've connected to our platform. And in that way, we kind of channel both ways. Instead of trying to just drag them to us, we also push information out towards them on their own platforms. And I think that's a way of building those bridges again to bring people together.
Absolutely. So both of you have touched on this a bit throughout our conversation today, but I want to dig a little bit deeper into what kinds of metrics you're using to measure that success and the impact on your community initiatives. So I know that's a hard one, but I'd love to hear how you're doing that.
It's a really hard one. And I would say even more so because the health work that we do is very much based on data, and people in global health like to measure everything. So our work is also kind of prone to wanting to be measured. And so what we do, and I know that you can see the slide, we have for ourselves like 4 big components under which we try to put analytics. So we have our reach, the number of people, the type of countries, the type of sectors that they're from. All of those we can give numbers and percentages, and we can give the analytics. Okay. Obviously the same for the website. We can give a lot of data on our reach. How many reach does the webinar have? What is the reach of certain pages on our website? All of that you can measure. We have beautiful graphs. That's the easiest piece. But the real question is the engagement. Like, how do people engage with that? And so that is more where we try and get who are the most active people, who participate in our events, who participate in multiple events, and to get data and statistics to really show us who the most active members are, not just on the platform, but also blending it together with the events that they participate in and activities that we, or projects that we have on our platform, and how they engage in that. And that's a bit more tougher to measure. Now, going to the next level of measuring is really like, what does it change for people? What kind of knowledge have they gained? What kind of behaviors have changed? How often have they forwarded their information to colleagues because they're really committed to this? That's a number. That's something you can track in terms of numbers. How much has this led to policy change in the country? Really hard to measure, because that's where we get into the impact. And that's for us really, but we can do measure how many grants have you written based on the information that you've gotten from our platform. How many articles have you used from our network when you're writing new policy? That type, we try to get those types of data, but it's very, very hard. And finally, we really look at the leadership component in terms of tracking how people grow. What are how are people taking the journey of the community, and then that's more of a narrative and a qualitative story than that we can support it with numbers. But that, I think, is the real story and the real impact of our work. So I'm hoping that that kind of resonates, but we would love to hear, because I think this is one of the toughest things in communities of practice. And it kind of is related to what we were saying earlier. As community manager, you're behind the scene. As community that you're building, you're behind the scene of lifting up the subject area in our case. And so we're not necessarily visible, and that is a success in itself, but that's really hard to measure. So that's what I would kind of focus in on. And I think there's a slide that is after this that just shows sorry, I should have said that straight away. But so we have a reach of over 6,000 people with our kind of website and our mailing list. And then we can tier down to what are the members, who is engaged, how are they engaged? And within that, we also compare with the general statistics that you referred to earlier, like who are the learners in the pyramid, and just to kind of for ourselves to know, are we on track with the people that receive our digest and never click on it, or receive our MailChimp, or receive our whatever channels we use, and to get a little bit of an idea of where we need to improve. So that's a bit of the try and the work that we try and do in our monitoring and then our analytics. So yeah.
Thank you. That's incredibly detailed. I have two little follow-up questions before I pop over to Debbie. So it sounds like you said there's quite a bit of a balance between the qualitative versus the quantitative. How are you getting the qualitative? Are you asking directly? Is it observations that you're getting from the community? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's both. We actually actively kind of, as a good being based in a research community, the whole kind of mixed methods approach is very, very kind of instilled in us. So we try to do surveys. We try and reach out for interviews in focus group discussions that we have when we have a panel together. We kind of actively prompt and put a few questions in there where we get feedback that we document. We document emails that we get with feedback, whether positive or negative, constructive or kind of complaining. All of that is documented because it's really, it's data. It's important information for us. And I think in some cases when we have a need for development of a particular project, we reach out to people on our network through an open question, but then also actively follow up with specific members that we know we will get an answer. And that gives us, again, the data that we need to take things forward.
Okay. And then my other follow-up question, since you brought it up, what do you do about those that are not clicking and not opening and not receiving? Do you chase them at all?
No.
No,
I don't. And we don't. We leave them, and we and I mean, this is actually, I can see that some of them unsubscribe or that they click their notifications off. And I have this on my to-do list at the bottom as a follow-up to kind of send out this message. If you're still interested, in our learning network, please click here to make sure that we kind of clean up our database. But to be honest, that seems to be something that kind of drops off the to-do list very often, and the focus is more on people that are engaged than on those that are not engaged. If that ends up in their spam inbox, or if that's beyond, I mean, my power of control. And it would make sense to clean up our database at some point to have true numbers, and that's the reason I would do it.
So your advice would be to focus on those who are engaging and understand and get more out of that than chase after the ones who are not.
That would be my suggestion, but I would be curious to hear what other people do.
All right. Now, Debbie, I'm going to come over to you and ask difference between qualitative and quantitative. What's it look like over at APM?
Right. Okay. So our community is a member benefit. So the choice to come to the community is very individual. So we have over 45,000 members at APM, and I get about 15% of them come to the community, which I think is pretty good. And
it is. I can confirm.
I'm quite pleased with that. So as long as we're I can see us getting activated accounts and people are coming across, because our membership changes as well, because there's an annual renewal. Some people will join us for a short period of time, and others will become life members because of their career and their career journey. So yes, I measure activated accounts. I can see how many people are joining us, but I can also see how many people are lapsing in their membership and they're not they may have activated on their account and leave. So it's a forever moving, and I would imagine most communities are like that, where you get people who come. I often see you go to a community to find a solution to a problem, and if you found that solution, there's not necessarily a need to go back. So you might only come to a community, whereas if you come to a community because you want to give back and you want to be engaged, you'll keep coming back anyway. So I think that's what I was sort of saying earlier, is making it a habit, but that's not, I can't quantify that.
Yeah.
Because it's such a movable thing. So it is very tricky to measure engagement. I'm a little reluctant to just pin it on numbers. I always find that a bit limiting, because people's capacity to come onto a community and engage is probably dictated by their own life and their work balance, things like that. So they'll come when they can. So to keep putting pressure on, not just me, but so, well, why have the, I mean, I'm lucky, the numbers keep growing year on year. I'm getting more and more people on there. But in terms of, I'd rather have 100 people on there really engaged than 100,000 not engaged.
Absolutely. That's similar to what.
It's about the engagement, and you can see in a community, you can see when people are engaged, and that's
Thank you. Well, we've only got about 2 to 3 minutes left here, because I want to make sure I save a couple minutes for questions. Last question I'd have for you is, what would be your proudest community moment? Like from the beginning to now, anytime in between, what makes you proud of what you do on a daily basis? And I'll go over to Petra, I guess, to start on this one.
So I think what really resonated with me was when Debbie said, when a post explodes, that's a proud moment. And that's when people connect with each other. And we had this conference where you see pictures. On the one side, you see all our achievements that we are proud of, but on the other side, it's really the connection of the people. And when they connect and they say, oh, but I'm also a member of the TBPPM Learning Network, and proudly share which webinars they've been part of, hearing those conversations of people individually and being kind of not part of that, those are really really proud moments where you see that they connect around the issues and that you've helped them in their work. I think that's really where my motivation comes from. That's the part of the community manager role, and that's the part of the community itself to take this whole issue of ending tuberculosis forward, and to seeing that people find ways to exchange thoughts and hear how they can better do their work thanks to the platform that we offer. I would say that's one of my real proudest moments. And we've established a course online at McGill University and the Summer Institute. And the first time we said, well, let's set ourselves a bar of 100 maximum participants, and we got over 180 applications. And that was another proud moment to see that the interest from where we started in the beginning with just 200 people might be interested in this topic, that within this course, the first time that there was such a large amount of interest beyond of what we were offering, that shows that we have been kind of successful in growing the interest in the topic. And so I would say those two things are two concrete successful moments of our community up till now.
Yeah, I have so many clients that just get thrilled every time they're at an event, in-person event, for example, and one of them is, oh yeah, I saw that on name of community. I'm not going to say it here, but TBPPM. Oh my God, awareness. People know, people are on this, people are using this, and they just light right up. So I suppose that's the type of thing that gives community managers the energy to keep pushing and keep going. Debbie, what about yourself?
Well, yes, I have two things that really mean a lot to me, and have been a highlight in the last 4 years. One was the launch of our mentoring program. That was a really big achievement and a real, a team effort across APM, and it was so successful. It was quite a new module for us, and we had a KPI for getting 100 mentors on board within a year, and within 3 weeks we had over 250.
That's
So
wonderful. Yeah.
it was what the members wanted. We built it and gave it to them, and it just grew and grew, and it's still doing really, really well today, and lots of partnerships are going on. And it's just amazing to see. Every time I see an email saying the new relationship's been built, you think, yes.
Wow.
So that was one. And the second one is probably a little bit emotional, in that I was caring for my late husband, who he did pass away, and I was caring for him, and I kept being pushed to stop work so I could care for him and care for myself a little bit. But I really wanted to get the mobile app activated and launched, and that was, for me, it's got quite an emotional attachment. I did it. We launched the mobile app, and it was a sort of an end point for me to stop work for a little while I cared for my husband. So the mobile app was a great achievement, but also it's got quite a sharp memory for me. But those are the two things that have really made a big impact.
Thank you so much. That, once again, is just a reminder of the heart of any community is the community manager, and you get out of it as much as you put into it as well, right? So, having that attachment and having that place of belonging and having that goal of, I really want to see this through. I think that bleeds through and even, helps your members to flourish tenfold. So thank you for sharing that, both of you. All right. Well, like I said, we've only got about 12 minutes left at this point. I want to make sure we have some time for questions. So I'm going to pop over to the Q&A box here real quick. Well, let's see what we've got. All right. So first one here. How much customization of the platform was required at the beginning and as your needs grew and changed? This one is from Leah or Leah. Does one of you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can. Not a massive amount, actually. I think the platform's really quite easy to apply your brand to. I found it very, very easy to do that in terms of the colours and the fonts and things like that. We have a white label as well, so we have our own URL for it as well. The other thing that I would say is quite easy to do is that because it's modular, you can build your community based on what your community needs. So you don't necessarily have to have every element of what you offer, but I mean, I have everything because I can't possibly miss out on any module. But there, but I think that for me, it's you know, you can add a module as your needs are.
Okay. And kind of even use that to keep things fresh, you know, release stuff as you go to have new stuff going on. Okay, cool. Petra, anything to add?
I just think that it's been a journey for us, and I'm proud to have partnered with Hivebrite from the very beginning. Whereas in the very beginning, we were coding on to get our things online. It was coding language, and to see how rapidly Hivebrite has evolved to make things much easier for a customer to build things. So I think the expansion and the scale up for us really has meant to create new groups and to create new opportunities within the platform. And I think there are so many different ways you can. And as Debbie is saying, you don't have to use every avenue. And we see that some groups are just using the platform for their live feed communication, whereas others actively open up a lot more, like forum discussions, or they use events, or they share a local library, or and those are all available on the platform. And so it requires a little bit of tailoring with the group that you want to facilitate. But I think all those options are available. And that's how we've rapidly grown, by also rapidly putting them in smaller groups so that they still meet.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to go to another question. Anonymous attendee has asked, could you give examples of how you're tapping into members' passion? This one's for Petra. And I am going to interject briefly. I remember during one of our conversations, you had said something so beautifully. It was having a joint goal and a joint passion makes collaboration easy. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's really it. You know, people, since we're an open, volunteer-driven network, people are not paid to come and join us. They join because they want to learn, and they want to find out more information. And that's also that piece, that passion is what the community thrives on, and that's what makes them belong. That's what makes them a feeling of belonging to the community. So I think it's crucial to allow for that passion also. So when we actively create space for ideas, for creativity, for innovation, people can come up with suggestions to us, and we try and actively showcase that this member brought this forward, that's why we're doing it, just to showcase that passion. And yeah, I think what we actively do, and this is specifically to tuberculosis, but we really make an effort to put people at the center. And so the people that are have been affected by TB are always part of our discussions. That's the story, that's the reality of why everyone who works on tuberculosis. So we make a huge effort to showcase the personal part of the fight to end TB. And I think that brings people also really together again around the passion of the issue, and reminds them why they're doing their work that they're doing. And so it's not necessarily tactical only that we do that. We really do it because we believe in it. So maybe that's a bit of more of an answer, but
thank you. I'm gonna jump to this one actually, because multiple people have asked this, so I'm getting the impression that it's pretty important. You just talked about passion, right? And passion can be a good thing, and sometimes it can be a problematic thing. Do either of you have any difficulties establishing guidelines in your community and dealing with moderation, right? So there's a question on here about, again, managing guidelines and making sure members are not disruptive. Does that passion ever lead to things that are a little heated that don't really belong there?
Well, on my community at the moment, no. I think they're all quite well behaved and professional. But if I could just say, in my previous role at the disability charity Scope, and that was an open public community, so anyone could join it. So your moderation and your controlling people is a lot more challenging. And I certainly had a lot of challenges there. What I think is really key to that is having established your moderation processes, as in at what point is it become not acceptable. So you do have your guidelines. I have a sentiment guidelines document that I share with everyone that says, you know, think about where you are and how you want to answer things. But have a moderation guidelines, have emails that go to the person and manage that moderation, and have a real process in place. And it needs to be unique as your what you're dealing with. But you can swap them out.
All right. Petra,
Yeah.
any
Oh, sorry. Yes, I completely agree with Debbie, and I think so when it's in a public forum, which we've had a few times, some disturbances. I think the way you act really like firmly on the spot really helps to kind of build that trust part of your community. Transparency, accountability, all of those are really important points to look at in how you operationalize that for your community. And I think on the platform there are ways to moderate, and I've taken comments off the platform. I have also reached out to people actively and said, listen, this is not okay. And I think you just need to really deal with situations head on. And if it's in a public forum, again, it might be awkward, but that's just, I mean, that's life, right? I think conflict resolution is something that if you also showcase that you're doing it actively, it builds people's trust that you are there to protect the space. And I think therefore it's really important to immediately respond to anything that's inappropriate or outside of the guidelines. And you can't prevent everything from happening. There's always going to be people that just have a different opinion about things, and setting the line straight is really important. And I think that's one of the main roles as a community manager, to hold that frame for a safe and kind of welcoming, trusted space. So
to add to your, it's really important that that other members of the group see that you are dealing with it. Really, really important. If don't do it all behind the, let it be visible that actually, because then other people will read it that actually, oh, my post is a little bit. So it will help educate. So yeah, be very visible about your moderation.
It's kind of funny. It makes me think of what Debbie had said back at the beginning. You wouldn't walk up to someone and say, hi, I'm John, and then walk away. Likely, a lot of the things that require moderation, you probably wouldn't walk up and say to someone in person either. So I'm wondering if maybe there's an opportunity there to update your papers there. All right, gonna move on to another question. Totally agree for community management being draining at times. Do you have any tips on prioritizing disconnecting and self-care? So yeah, by nature of having a community, it's on your app, it's on the phone, it's on the computer. What do you do to kind of forget about that sometimes, to focus on you?
Oh.
Debbie's like, how do we do that? I need to know.
Yeah, can anyone give me any tips? I think, I mean, for me, especially as we're all, a lot of us are working at home and in that sort of hybrid environment at the moment, and it's all online, is to have clear, like, this is the end of my working day. Because the thing is, with community platforms, they are 24/7. Don't say, well, you can't come in now, it's 9 o'clock at night. So depending on your community, you may be getting notifications. I mean, I know when people are posting, especially internationally, if people are posting at different times of the day. So I think have your own boundaries and set them and stick to them, and just do that. And it is mindfulness, just take a step back. I do colouring. Colouring is my downtime, and so find something that actually gives you some, where you're not thinking about anything other than the colours you're going to use or something like that.
Awesome.
I love that. So yeah, I agree, and I actually, working in a time zone that is really hard sometimes to get people on one platform, because we are going from the Philippines to Seattle or the other side of the world. I have turned my notifications off, Debbie, on purpose for that reason, because I think when I'm not behind my device, whichever one it is, I just don't really want to know. I'll follow up when I'm ready for it. And for me, a way is to actively plan in breaks and just go outside. That when I'm outside and I see that the flowers are starting to bloom and it's spring, it really takes me away from everything that's on the screen, and that's a way for me to re-energize. And I think it's necessary, and I completely agree with you that you need to set your own boundaries, and that's a tough one this day and age. And I think that's also at the same time the opportunity that we offer. There's an overload on information, and we help channel and funnel that information on our platform. That's why people come to our platform, because we help them prioritize what's the most important for you to read, or what's the latest information that's important for you. So that function itself makes you want to be kind of on top of everything, and you just simply can't. So consciously choosing to sometimes stop and go outside, I think that's a wise thing to do, and doesn't always work. But yes, I would also love tips if people have clear tips. And it's a problem when you're dealing with an issue that you're passionate about too.
Thanks so much, both of you. Well, speaking of respecting boundaries, I'm just looking at the clock and realizing that we're out of time for today. So thank you so much to both of you. Thank you for all of the questions that everyone has sent in. If you do have additional questions, don't feel free to respond to the email that you're going to get tomorrow with today's recording. So if you even think through additional things that you want to ask, please go ahead and do that. As we mentioned a little bit earlier, Kat's going to be dropping a link for a really short survey in here. We would love to have your opinions, if you can just take 2 minutes to respond to that. And thank you to everyone. And we'll see you at a future webinar, we hope.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.